Welcome to Canadian Agriculture Unpacked. I'm your host, Bob Friesen. With me, co-host Wayne Easter, a longtime veteran, 28-year veteran of the House of Commons, longtime chair of the House of Commons Finance Committee, former Solicitor General, a farmer years and years ago, and now he still dabbles in farming in Ukraine and mucks around at home on what used to be his old farmyard. Welcome back, Wayne. And our special guest today, Katie Pasitne, she of the Universal Ostrich Farm and the whole saga in BC around ostriches. And I know Katie, well, first of all, welcome to the show, Katie.
Thanks
I know a
for
lot
having
of people have heard all kinds of things coming out of BC. I live in Quebec. I hear you're a real troublemaker. So we're going to get to the bottom of that. But welcome to the show, Katie.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
So I would like to cover both the saga of, or how this whole thing evolved, starting when you first realized there was some sort of a problem, whatever it is, and then a bit of the evolution of that. I'd like a little bit of background too. Before we started the show, you were talking a little bit about your mother and how she is involved in that, so we'd like some of that as well. And then I'd like to get into some of the science that perhaps a lot of people are missing because they haven't heard the whole story. You know, I'm not going to make any judgments as far as whether ostriches should be put down or not. You know, someone once said he didn't like two sides to a story because it was a lot easier to judge if you only know one side of the story. But we'd like to hear it all. So, Katie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a longtime animal advocate and I've been raised around these big and beautiful birds for 35 years. Our family have been in ostriches for 35 years. It's become a passion, and we're just a family farm where all of us kids are involved. And when this happened, we went through fires a few years ago, and we did the same thing. We hunkered down. They wanted to evacuation order us out, and we said, no, you have to have a special understanding of these animals, and you have to know how to feed them, how to handle them. And we hunkered down with them then. And when this happened, there was just no question that we were going to fight this, because we knew that we're not poultry, and our animals have a resiliency that others just don't. So we've been here for 35 years in Edgewood, British Columbia, and it's been a family farm.
Well, hunkering down is something that farmers can certainly understand.
Right?
Give us some perspective of where you are geographically in BC.
So geographically, we're about 135 kilometers away from a major city, Vernon, British Columbia. And we're over the windy roads and the highways of the Monashee Mountains, closer to the Kootenays. It's a beautiful area, very isolated. Geographically, we're basically quarantined all on ourselves because we are on a dead-end road. We're not in a town. We're 10 miles out of a town, or 10 kilometers out of a town right now, and that town has no major industry. So we're very isolated and in a beautiful valley.
Okay, and so December 2024, what happened?
Yeah. December 2024, we had ostriches getting some symptoms. Those symptoms were presenting themselves as symptoms that we had in 2020. So back in 2020, we had kind of like a little bit of runny noses, cough. At that time as well in our ostriches, we were losing a few. So we called our vet back in 2020, and our vet came. We did the gold standard sampling. We did tissue sample. The tissue samples came back positive for Pseudomonas bacteria. We were shocked, kind of wondered, how did we get Pseudomonas bacteria? And he said that it could have been off a tourist's hand or from a tourist. At that time, we were herd about 300, roughly, and we lost about 10. So, and then it just cleaned up. We started our own quarantine procedure. We kind of cleaned up the bowls. We did our own protocols, and it went away. And then we never thought really much more of it until 2024. So December, we start seeing some of the same symptoms as in 2020, but in the birds that have been on our farm only from 2020 after. Because we bought some just over 100, 150. And those birds were exhibiting the symptoms of the birds from 2020, and we were having some deaths. So we contacted our vet right away because we thought it was Pseudomonas bacteria again, which is not reportable to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. And when we did that, our vet was away for holidays because it was December. And another vet clinic, we found out, sold out without us really knowing, and it was in the hands of a new owner, and that owner was not available either, so we were just waiting on our vets getting back to us. During the meantime, we were quarantined ourselves, doing our protocols, cleaning, proper disposal of our animals. As farmers know protocol, you don't want your other animals to get sick, so you put yourself in a strict routine and a good protocol to keep everybody healthy. And then we got a phone call from Canadian Food Inspection Agency, and at the time we were kind of shocked. Number one, we're not for food, so we didn't really understand the phone call. And then we were told that there was an anonymous tip that went into Canadian Food Inspection Agency. And that anonymous tip said that they were sure that we had avian influenza. That time we told them the symptoms that we had, told them that we were showing the same symptoms in the animals back in 2020, and that was Pseudomonas bacteria for sure. We had the results from the lab. And we had ostriches that were sick, but we had ostriches that were also getting better. And we had more than half our farm having no symptoms at all. And Canadian Food Inspection Agency vet said this does not sound like avian influenza at all, because in a commercial poultry facility setting, you would have 20, 30,000 dead over 48 hours.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but BC has had avian influenza before, and it was just astounding how quickly birds died. Like whole barnfuls just keeled over. It can be a very pervasive disease. No
That's right.
doubt about it. The other thing that strikes me, and then I'll let you continue. Ostriches are very resilient. We had a European Union North American farm leaders meeting in San Diego some years ago, and we went out to an ostrich farm, and we noticed they had chicken wire along the bottom of their fences, and we asked them, "What's that chicken wire for?" And they said, "That's to keep out the snakes." And they had a case where an ostrich had swallowed. Well, an ostrich suddenly went down. It didn't die, but it was like comatose for a couple of days, and then suddenly revived. And they found out that the ostrich they told us typically an ostrich would grab a snake and bang it against the fence to kill it, but apparently this ostrich had swallowed the snake and had been bitten a rattlesnake, and had been bitten on the inside, and it was comatose for a couple of days and then jumped up and was perfectly okay. So they are a resilient animal. Wayne, do you have any questions so far?
Well, no, just originally on Katie's description of where she lives. Is there, so what you're saying, Katie, is there's no other poultry around you for miles?
That's right. And there's no commercial poultry facilities around us for miles and miles. And so we are geographically also based in our own zone. Canada has trading zones, so where different zones affect different trading. And if there's an affected HPAI affected zone, infection in that zone, you can actually kind of lock down that zone, and that zone can be separated from the other zones. So we are actually geographically in our own zone as well. And that's what we said, how are we affecting trading when we're in our own zone? And we could deem this zone clear if we just tested all the animals that are surviving for now 276 days. We could test them. But again, I think there's just been such a communication barrier and a communication breakdown between the Canadian Food Inspection Agency and our farm.
The reason I ask, and that zones an improvement from the time of mad cow disease.
That's right.
Um, I was involved in that. I was a member of parliament at the time, and one cow in Alberta cost us to destroy herds in Prince Edward Island. That's a long distance away.
That's a very long distance.
Now, I understand the CFIA rules, and I understand the uh, purpose of keeping the total industry and the big industry safe.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of experience gained under mad cow disease where there was quite a push to go to at least regional zones. We weren't as successful as we wanted to be in terms of getting there. But I had two herds destroyed in my riding. One of them was a herd that was imported from England, couldn't be replaced.
Yeah.
So a lot of hurt and destruction, but I do think at the time we felt it was and so did most farmers, not all. It
Yeah.
was for the better good of the industry, and so that's why the rules are there. But that's why I asked the question: are you near other poultry? What's the danger to the commercial farming as a result of
Yeah.
disease in your ostriches, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
And that's a
Yeah.
really good point, Wayne, because in the cattle industry, one of the things we found out in that same discussion was there was a lot of cattle moving interprovincially, right? And so for that reason, it also created somewhat of a risk. Okay, Katie, sorry to interrupt. So CFIA didn't think at the beginning that it was AI, and then what happened?
And then they asked if they could come to the farm. We said yes, because we were thinking that they were going to kind of work with us. Here we are. Again, we don't sell our ostriches. Are not going. They are for research right now, and they have been now for the last 4 to 5 years. And so we don't. They're not going over the border. We're not selling them. They stay here. They're flightless animals, and they pose a lot of opportunities. So here we thought that they were kind of wanting to do a test, work with us. They knew that more than half of our farm never exhibited any symptoms or death. And they showed up and they proceeded to do 2 PCR tests of 2 deceased animals that laid there for about 16 hours. And the PCR tests that they ran them at about 39 cycles. And the 39 cycles that they ran obviously is alarming. We found out that later, but we have we have we're at a farmhouse. Somebody just walked in. So we asked them at the same time, will you test the animals that were healthy and have never been affected? They said no. We asked them at the same time, will you affect the ones that were recovered? And they said no. Didn't have really an explanation for that, but we were wanting something to say, a more collaborative group test, because we wanted to save our herd of ostriches. I mean, we have ones that are decades old. We have the oldest ostrich here being 35 years old, and they've seen environmental challenges that we could never replace and are extremely resilient. So the Canadian Food Inspection Agency left with those PCR tests, and they went back to Abbotsford. And now Abbotsford is not the accredited lab for testing for H5N1. There's one accredited lab in Canada that is in Winnipeg for testing for the H5N1. So we, about 1:30 in the morning, when we looked at the lab results, they were running our lab results at about 1:30 in the morning, and they decided they signed the cull order for all of our animals 41 minutes after they got a test positive for the H, but they can't test for the N1 in Abbotsford, so they couldn't actually say that we had H5N1 because they couldn't test for that. So 41 minutes after the lab results tested in Abbotsford, they signed our cull order. Then we got the phone call on December 31st that all of our animals were to be destroyed. Now, obviously, that put everything into motion in our minds, and how do we work with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency? We have opportunity here. We've been begging the Canadian federal government for months now, showing them our research for funding to see if we could work with the Canadian government. We were showing them all of our research, our data, our results. We worked with a lab out of Quebec, Immune Biosolutions, Frederic Leduc, and we were able to show it within his lab that our antibodies and our ostrich eggs were able to neutralize the COVID-19 variant, not block it, but actually neutralize it. When we were
Okay,
working,
so just let me stop you there. So this
yeah,
is really what you've got the herd for, right? First of all,
that's
they're
right.
not a multiplier herd, and you don't sell them for meat.
That's right.
But you have them for exactly what you just mentioned, that they have antibodies that could be used both for animal pharmaceuticals as well as human
Yeah.
pharmaceuticals. Is that correct? And that's just,
Yes.
I'd like to get into that a little bit later.
Okay.
But so now they just told, so they tested only that
Right.
one animal,
Two.
two animals, but
Yeah.
they
Two
didn't
animals.
come to, they didn't check whether there was any living animals that had the virus.
Correct. And then so where we had the real issue was, so on this is December 31st. January 2nd, they had a 5-hour meeting with us on a Zoom call with about 30 high up vets, top officials, and they said, no, no, we're very interested in the research you're working on. But we need to see everything. We need to see your studies, your research, your papers, your business plan. We want to see everything because we're very, very interested in working with you. And so 5.5 hours later, my mom said, have you already decided that you're going to kill all our animals? And this, you're just bleeding us of our intellect property. And they said, no, 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 we're very interested in working with you. This is all fascinating. And again, then that moved into, they said, after that meeting, they said, we actually got on January 2nd also an email saying that we qualified for special rare genetics. And so that was another exciting thing for us because we said, okay, well then this is fantastic. Here's a way out of this. We have decade-old animals, and they're going to do some testing on them. But from the 2nd to the 10th, we somehow lost the right to rare special genetics, and from the 2nd to the 10th, they firmly decided that no, the cull has to proceed. And on January 10th, we got the notification from the government that by February 1st, our family was to go out there and destroy these animals ourselves. So we were
Okay,
supposed to go, yeah.
so let me, sorry, I keep interrupting, but
No, please.
I have
Good.
some
Good
questions, and I'm
question.
sure Wayne has some questions. So you had a very constructive meeting, and you thought that the CFIA scientists were interested in the genetic and immunization research that was happening from the ostriches on your farm, and then suddenly something happened. Wayne, do you have any questions?
Well, yeah, uh, we've had lots of. Sometimes we wonder who CFIA is really working for. We run into all kinds of obstacles, like in this province, is the potato industry here. We ran into potato wart, and CFIA informed all our trading partners
Oh,
before they informed
that's what it
us.
was. It was potato
And
wart, Katie.
yeah,
Not wireworm,
uh,
but potato wart.
Okay.
and has cost the seed industry destruction now for 3 years. One producer that I know had opened up markets in 7 countries, and it was lost just like that. So sometimes I do wonder who CFIA really thinks they're working for. and they just go by the book. They just go by the book. And I guess my question to you would be, and to CFIA would be, if, as you suggest, these animals, these ostriches, um, seem to develop an immunity to avian virus, then what we should be doing, rather than destroying them, is doing the research to see if we can learn something from that research to perhaps develop immunity from avian influenza for regular poultry operations. That would be, I mean, if you're in an area, my first question was, are you in an area where you're not near commercial operations? You are.
Very much so.
So you should be able to take the time to do the research to look at what can we possibly learn from this situation in ostriches that would be helpful to the commercial industry.
You are absolutely right, Wayne. And then, where we're at, it's, if you think about, we've been 276 days that we've been caught up in this crazy back and forth battle with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency at the federal government, federal court level, when we could have just studied and did some tests on them 200 days ago, and we could have started looking at them and seeing where we could use this opportunity in the commercial poultry farming, in animal and human health. And instead we're choosing to what has been very clear is destruction over discovery. Like I said, how penicillin was made. If he would have taken that petri dish and he saw his experiment ruined and he threw it away, we would have never had penicillin. But he chose discovery. He chose to look at it as something, as opportunity, and here we have penicillin. This is one of those times. Do we choose discovery or destruction, or do we grow? The own mandates at Canadian Food Inspection Agency is to have evolving science, work with the veterinarians, work with researchers, evolve. But there's no evolving here by eradication.
Has VIDO, the Vaccine and Infectious Disease Organization, they're part of
In
the
Saskatoon?
yeah,
Saskatoon.
part of the University of Saskatchewan Research Center. Have they sniffed around at all, and are they? You would think that they would be on the phone and would be wondering about this, because that's their work, is designing vaccines for immunization.
Well, and you think about, where we're at in this now too, and we have avian influenza has become an endemic. As long as we have migratory birds flying around the world, we're going to have avian influenza. So chasing avian influenza free status also is really challenging. I understand that stamping out has a positive effect in certain places, like a commercial poultry facility. When there is this many birds, they're enclosed, they're side by side, it's rapidly going through a bunch of chickens in the tens of thousands. But when we start using the stamping out technology or this method on open air outdoor animals, we're really on a slippery slope, because here we have long living ostriches that cannot be housed indoors. It is just, they can't. That would be cruel. They live up to 60 to 70 years old, and they're a prehistoric animal that survived millions of years on this earth due to their robust and amazing immunity. And we cannot house them. So, but if we have migratory birds flying over everywhere, we got to start thinking to ourselves, are we going to kill off every backyard flock? Are we going to kill off every bird, every exotic bird, some people's personal pets due to avian influenza? Or are we going to start to try to evolve and bring something, new technology to the front line? And that's all we have, been trying to do here, is that we've been working on this now for the past 4 or 5 years, closely with Dr. Tsukamoto out of Japan, where he holds 36 plus worldwide patents and is very well versed in this technology. It's being used in Japan right now. And this could be a huge breakthrough for Canada and on a global scale. I think it was just where was it? It was just recently the Canadian government just gave, I think, I just want to always be right with my numbers, $2.5 million fund for the Fraser Valley. And that $2.5 million was for commercial poultry facilities within the Fraser Valley of British Columbia to upgrade their filter systems and bring in blue light systems and try to kill bacteria and viral threats. Now, we are at the usable stages of using our antibodies in those filters to actually treat barns and help
Okay,
eradicate
before you go
virus.
you're, sorry to interrupt again,
No,
Katie, but you're getting into a really
the science.
fascinating area. But
Yeah, no
so
problem.
before we go there, because I'm envisioning that this should be turned into a science center rather than one that where you get rid of these birds. Well, I mean, I'm not a scientist, but it sounds to me like there could be potential. Let's get the one thing I'd also like to do is talk about what people in the rest of Canada are hearing, because they they just hear stories that make them think you're a radical, you're
Yeah.
unreasonable. There's
Yeah.
all kinds of threats. The RCMP has to hover around, and the whole story behind that. What? And obviously, this has attracted fringe elements, has it?
Yeah, it has. Absolutely. We are humble farmers and we have been for decades. We are not criminals, but if you came here, you would think that we have the biggest drug lab that has been ever seen and, known to man, honestly. I bet you, some of those labs don't even have this much police presence. It would blow your mind. Here we are, my mom and I were out, we're doing chores. We knew that Canadian Food Inspection Agency was on the move around when they were coming September 22nd. We knew that once we had that last loss in the federal Court of Appeal, that they were going to move in at some point. Then we heard there were hundreds of police cars starting to stay at hotels in Vernon, British Columbia, and that is just 135 kilometers away from here. So we got told that they were on the move. There was CFIA vehicles, there was a task force, there was all these people coming and going to move in on us. And again, you remember, we're just farmers feeding our birds every day, loving them. And
But you have had rabble rousers around, right?
yes, yes. So, but when these police officers start coming, it's just hard to even picture, 10, 20, 30, 40 police cruisers coming down a highway, and you're standing in with ostriches, and you don't know if this is going to be your last time with them or what's going to happen. And it did. This whole experience that day was painful and brought up this emotion in a lot of people. So we had a lot of supporters here, and there was somebody here who acted radical, absolutely. And while we were in with our ostriches, somebody out here acted completely irrational and radical. And so when we had negotiations at the front, because we were stopping the police and the RCM or the CFIA. We wanted to talk to them, and we wanted to see what was going to happen here. Were they going to come in with force? We were just standing in with our ostriches, and while we were talking about how this was going to play out, there was 3 search warrants they were going to deliver, and then this radical person goes and does something to our neighbor. We opened up the line right away. We brought in the RCMP. We stopped everything that we've been fighting for 10 months. We put on the back burner, and we helped get assistance to our neighbor. And then the gentleman was arrested, and he's never been back. From day one, 10 months ago, we hold the same messaging, and that is we do not condone violence, we do not condone aggression, and we do not condone any hatred or even threats to anybody. That is not how we get somewhere. It's not how we create change. And we are humble farmers, and we are just trying to protect our animals and change a policy that has flaws and it is broken. And we just want to stand up.
Go ahead.
On that point, Bob, I used to be president of the National Farmers Union many years ago, in the 80s to the early 90s, and we were an organization that held lots of demonstrations. In fact, I ended up in Justin Trudeau's government and Mike Chrétien's government, and we had demonstrated against Pierre Elliott Trudeau many times. But what we found happens when you're having what is a peaceful demonstration, there is always someone who's got other ulterior motives who is going to edge their way in and make you look bad. So the experience you had is not unusual, and that's something you really have to watch for when you're planning a demonstration. But also, it's something that you don't have a heck of a lot of control over. So I'm just making the point
Thank
that
you.
a radical in your group or from outside is not unusual, and it usually creates the impression that, well, you're crazy
Yeah.
or
Well,
your group is crazy.
mainstream
And
media
that's
leads
and
it.
it's that incident that'll get the media attention. That's the other thing. The media is never balanced in terms of reporting that kind of thing. They will report that individual, that radical incident, as if it was the whole.
Yeah,
Just so
they
you know.
want to report what grabs people's attention,
Yeah,
and that's it, right?
Yeah.
Sensationalism, that's
And
really
that's
what
what
that is.
happened. That's what happened there. And but for the last 10 months, because what we've had was actually a really unbiased mainstream media. We were really proud. And we were like, wow, they're covering both sides of this. But when that happened, they flipped a switch and went completely biased, and they loved it. You are so right, Wayne. And it really has hurt us. Canadian Food Inspection Agency has also put out their own social media task force on us. When Canadian Food Inspection Agency put out their own social media task force on us, we have had nothing but the most elaborate lies. And if you would be so surprised to see the lengths of some of the material that they've developed and created to make it look like it's true to attack us. And again, I mean, I'm going to say if this is in my opinion, that they've particularly done this, but why would you create a task force for our farm? And after they created the social media task force, we've had nothing but hate groups, bigger hate groups, trolls, people attacking our families, and then them saying that we're the ones making death threats to the police. We're the, not us, but our supporters. Our supporters are making threats to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. And again, we've always maintained the same level of commitment that our mission here, we do not condone violence, we do not condone threats, we do not condone any of that. And that is how we've held our messaging so strong for 10 months. We've stayed
You know,
focused on the core issue. The core issue is a Canadian Food Inspection Agency flawed policy. They were changing policies up to 2021. A policy can be, an update in a policy and a change in a policy, Bob, probably sure you know this, can be done within a week. And for something happened up to 2021, they did 12 amendments made. We were making some notes, like 12 amendments made to regulations in their policy from 2018 to 2021. And then all of a sudden it just stopped. And now there's no more policy changes made. And this could be as simple as just a policy change, because the stamping out there's more than a binary approach. Stamping out is not the only approach. You can quarantine, test, and monitor. 41 minutes after the test results came back from a non-accredited lab, they jumped to stamping out. We've also heard that when they have lots of staff, and I don't know, Bob, you could probably confirm this for me, but they've written it out that when they're understaffed, they will actually use the burning out approach. Which the burning out approach is sometimes, that's one of the better approaches we could do, because you're actually allowing the virus to just go through. You're dealing with it properly, and you're disposing of the infected, you're cleaning up, but you're going to end up with your survivors and the ones that have immunity in the end.
yeah, I think one of the things you and I talked before, Katie, is that the longer this goes on, the higher the climb down will be for the minister and the CFIA
Yeah.
to suddenly have to say, well, okay, we're going to have to let this go.
That's
Like I
right.
say, the longer it takes, the longer this drags out, the bigger that climb down is going to be. And so it may be that after a while they dig in their heels simply because they don't want to climb down. But the
Just
other,
Bob, a question that just so whoever watches this show is clear. So the police were there that day, and then they got the radical out of there. Um, and the birds, the ostriches, were not destroyed. What happened to create that new scenario that the birds didn't get destroyed, which was obviously their intent when they came in? What happened there to get to the stage that we still have the ostriches alive today, and you're fighting this
Yeah.
issue somehow, somewhere?
Yeah. So prayer. I'm not lying. Prayer. We actually prayed, and we had this we applied for the leave of Supreme Court, but we didn't have an answer, and Canadian Food Inspection Agency had moved themselves in. They arrested myself and my mom because we stayed in with the ostriches. We wanted to just maintain routine feeding the animals. We wanted to keep them calm while all the movement and new people were going to be around them. So we stayed in the pens. At the very first day that they got there, what initiated us wanting to stay even more, and you got to understand, is that the Monday that they showed up, Monday that they showed up, drones, RCMP brought in drones right away all over the property. Those drones were flying really low, and the ostriches were hitting fences. They were banging into everything. They were scared to death. Then we had a hen, Spirit, who is deceased now because of the neglect of Canadian Food Inspection Agency. She hit a fence and she flipped it twice. And we were yelling at the drones, screaming, "Get out of here. They're killing themselves. Like, you've got to get out of here." And finally, between just people that were doing the coordinating, was talking between communications between the Canadian Food Inspection Agency and us, they got the drones out of here. So my mom and I stayed back because we said this can't happen again. We need to watch over the animals while all this movement is happening. They told us there was a little bit of, so we stayed there. They were in talks with Canadian Food Inspection Agency, Courtney Fotheringham, and they said, you know what, okay, you guys can go feed your animals. When my mom and we all said thank you. Thank you. You're doing the humane thing, letting us just feed them, continue with the routine, and keep them calm. And when we went back to the back part of our field, they surrounded our farm truck with police cars and told us that we were under arrest. So we are not criminals. We are farmers. All we were trying to do was feed our animals, protect them at a time when we didn't have a stay order. We knew that they were moving in and they were going to prepare to kill. We said, we will not get in your way while you prepare. But we are holding out hope for the leave of Supreme Court to come back at us with a decision. So we got arrested, and we got taken out of the pens, came back down. We said a huge prayer, all of us together on the bleachers, and we got a phone call right after that prayer, and it was our lawyer saying we got granted an interim stay for while they decide if we're going to have the Supreme Court opportunity for the Supreme Court of Canada to hear us. So sorry, that was a long one, but it is an important backstory because we were just trying to feed our animals. And we said, we're not criminals. We are just here trying to protect life, opportunity, and offer something to Canada that is so brilliant and beautiful, and a therapeutic advantage that could save millions of animals and humans all over the world.
and I just wanted to make one comment about when
Yeah.
you talked about policy. My guess is having to put the animals down is a regulation and not a policy, because as you say, a policy can be created and implemented overnight, but a
Yeah.
policy is only a guideline. A regulation is enforceable, and a policy isn't. But be that as it may, everybody is in a really, really tough situation here. Wayne, do you think they have the ability to climb down on this one? But you know, the other thing, and I really want to get into what your farm is all about. You've also had a private sector scientist working for you. Is that correct?
Yes, we've had
And
top.
why is there such a divergence between private sector scientists and CFIA scientists? And maybe that goes back to what Wayne mentioned earlier. The CFIA forgets who they're working for or what it's about, and may not be as clinical about their observations and their conclusions as a scientist really should be. But why is there that divergence?
Just before you answer that question, Katie, what Bob is talking about there, it actually CFIA, or at least the people that work for CFA at your level, could be in a heck of a bind themselves, because the regulation may say the herd has to be destroyed because there's avian influenza. So that creates one of the problems with regulations when you're dealing with food safety, etc., is there's no give. This is the rule, so this is the rule, so that's it. So that may, in fact, be part of the problem here as well. I'm not sure, but I went. So the Supreme Court gave you a stay.
Yes.
Do you have to appear before the Supreme Court yet, or
Not
what's the
yet. We're
story?
waiting. We're waiting as they decide whether or not they're going to hear our case at the Supreme Court level. And so right now we have Canadian Food Inspection Agency in with our animals. We are not allowed in with our animals. They have seized our property. They have seized our animals. They seized our neighbor's property that they had no authority to do, to be able to do the cull, the kill. And so they're in with the animals right now. It has been fighting tooth and nail to get them to care for our animals the way we do. We're coming into cold weather and bedding, proper feeding. They're not doing proper feeding. They've been herding our animals into sections of our farm that don't make sense. They built a kill pen full of hay bales in a big square to herd our ostriches in, to dart them with euthanasia or kill them with some other method. Our ostriches are looking thin. They're not feeding them enough. We had an ostrich hen die because they were lying to us. We caught them. They were feeding them. We told that she was supposed to be getting a bag of electrolytes twice a day. The hen that they hurt, that flipped over the fence. We caught them dumping the electrolytes in a bush. Then this hen died from neglect and dehydrated and by herself. When we could see her almost at the barn, she was dying by herself. And then we asked the RCMP. They're neglecting our animals, and they are actually, it's animal cruelty. Go arrest them. We're asking for charges to be laid, and they can't.
Well, it makes no sense to me, Wayne. Wayne, it makes no sense to me that the owners would not be able to take care of the animals.
During an infant stage.
That seems to be some.
In my view, that's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, they may be trying to show they have the authority and the power, but if you folks were feeding the animals aren't going anywhere. They're going to be there if they have to come in to euthanize them later. And people that are not into animal husbandry, I mean, I was a dairy farmer. And also at beef, cattle, and hogs. But especially with some animals, they get used to you. Like I have a guy on the farm who has the barn leased now who's got beef cattle there. If I go into the pen, they run away. He goes into the pen, they come to him. And they get used to you.
Oh, yes.
And so that to me makes absolutely no sense. You folks should be looking after the animals, not CFIA. And what the hell is this costing?
And you know what, Wayne?
Well, it's clearly overreach, I would think. Katie, I need to ask you this question. Has the minister given you a call?
No.
I mean, this is
Yeah, the only people we've heard of, if we've had a few really incredible MLAs and an MP. We've really struggled on the front of politics and support politically and government-wise, even though thousands of letters and emails have flooded into these people. We need Canadian Food Inspection Agency to pause and reconsider and choose science over fear. I think Canada could lead the world in reshaping agricultural response with a new strong policy, maybe new strong, obviously, regulations, and evidence and courage rather than the lack of insight. They have nobody overseeing them. This is a big problem. There's so much power within the Canadian Food Inspection Agency that it just feels like they get to do whatever they want. It's just like
Have you
blanket.
talked to the director of the CFIA?
Yeah, no, we haven't. Nobody there will talk to us besides the case officer 7. We have, West AI 7. So we have a list of 7 people in an email that everything goes to, and it's correspondence only by email. We haven't had any internal dealings with higher ups at Canadian Food Inspection Agency, and especially with how much international interest and everybody saying please stop. We would have definitely thought we would have maybe even, this is where the lack of communication has went. Why can't we sit down at a table and have an adult conversation and say, maybe you guys have something here, and maybe you have something wonderful, and these animals have survived 66 days, and there's been no viral threat, no one's got infected, they haven't passed it on to anybody. Let's look at them as a living laboratory of opportunity for better human and animal health. We also put in, so when we lost our federal court of appeal, we put in reconsideration materials to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency on our own, so out of court. Those reconsideration materials were offering, again, all of our expert witness reports from Dr. Pellick, Byram Bridle. We were offering all of our scientific evidence of why these animals hold so much more value alive than they do dead, how they are not infinitely shedding the virus, how the incubation period on the Canadian Food Inspection Agency's own website is 7 to 14 days, how have these animals survived for the 276 days alive. The reconsideration material was for them to look at not just the cull order date of December 31st anymore. We said, okay, you won. Let's put that to rest. But you have to still now look at how many days they've survived. And Canadian Food Inspection Agency said no.
And that's part of the irony here, right? It's a year now, almost a year.
Almost a year.
Well,
that they've been there, and I mean, look, we know what can happen in a commercial, say, poultry situation, especially when you have farms close by each other, and where the farmers themselves realize the best thing to do is to cull the birds, depopulate, clean the barns, and start over and do it as quickly as possible so that the surrounding area isn't affected. But this seems to me to be a totally different situation.
Bob, I was going to
ahead.
come in there. They're continuing to survive in an environment that is not ideal for them. If you're not feeding animals properly, if you're creating excitement around them, if they're uncomfortable, then getting sick is a stronger possibility. One of my worries, Katie, is actually with the Supreme Court, and that is the Supreme Court, if they do hear you, can only look at what's the authority of CFIA, what's the regulation, and so on. And that creates a great problem for you, because then the order could go, yes, they've got the right to euthanize. So you have to, this is just advice. So you had to figure a way of getting to the system somehow to say, look, we have all this evidence elsewhere, and I know you're doing that from other bodies, other scientists, etc., etc.
And yeah, no.
Your statement was pause and reconsider. That CFIA needs to pause and reconsider and find avenues that may benefit uh, a solution to avian influenza for the commercial industry, if only if other options other than euthanasia were used by this herd for this herd.
Yeah.
So that's if I was in your shoes, that'd be my biggest concern. Is uh, Courts can only rule on the laws, the law is the law.
So
They're
what
not going to go
happens?
outside that.
So what happens, Wayne? The problem here, and this is where we ran into when the Canadian Food Inspection Agency will not deal with you. They will not talk to you. They will not collaborate with you. There's nobody there that will say, you know what, let's come up with some new solutions. Let's come up with a, hey, our reconsideration material had all that in it. There is nothing but opportunity here for the commercial side.
Yeah, you have to get a hold of the minister.
Or another option would be to try and get before the Standing Committee on Agriculture in Ottawa, Agriculture and Agri-Food.
So the standing,
Well,
yeah,
jeepers, the like that'd be an avenue to get yourself before Parliament. Look, you could write the clerk of this. Go on the website and look for Parliament. Find the Committee on Agriculture, the clerk's name there.
yeah,
Write the clerk and copy all members on the committee saying, look, we have a serious issue here. We
yeah.
think CFIA needs to pause and reconsider, give a wee bit of the evidence that others are saying, and there must be other alternatives here. Now, they're probably already biased because of some of the publicity's been out there, and they will be concerned about avian influenza getting into the commercial industry. I mean, I've been there. I know how you look at these things. But that might be an approach that you could take, but don't do it a long letter. Do a very short, concise letter. We would like to appear before the committee to explain our side of the story. Then they can invite CFIA to hear their side of the story,
Yeah.
because I'm worried about this law being the law,
Yeah.
and it's blind to the reality of this situation.
It
You
really
know,
is.
and when Wayne talks about writing a short letter, he's been a member of Parliament. He knows they never read anything past half a page. So,
Oh no, we read a page, a
okay,
page.
yeah, you never flip it
Oh,
over. Have you,
And
has the poultry industry or BCAC, have they weighed in into this?
not very much. Again, we'll go back to Jeff Wilson's been instrumental. We're looking at better outbreak response plans, right? Because what Canadian Food and Inspection Agency is demonstrating here is a theatrical display of punishment. It is not protocol. They are not wearing their hazmat suits. Sometimes they're wearing them others. They're in there, with their hazmat suits and outdoor baseball hats that they get to wear out afterwards. Vehicles are coming in and out. The police are driving in and out of hot zones. The CFIA was camped right over our major hot zone. They were sleeping on it. And then their motorhome leaves for 4 hours. It has been the irony in what's happening out here and watching them after we've been ridiculed for how we were supposed to handle ourselves. This is what they're showing the world because the world is watching. They went in there, they cut our cameras. We had cameras in there for just all different predators and worried about so we could watch over our animals. They cut all of our streams, cut all our cameras. They taped over the cameras that they couldn't cut so that nobody can watch what they're doing in there. What are they hiding? They have black fencing. They have drone blockers. They have put
They
in
shut off your security cameras?
Yes. They have a complete no-fly, no-tam zone that they've redirected even domestic and international like flights over our whole area. Nobody is allowed to fly in this area. Drone blockers. They have a canine unit, a task force, all for these animals that have survived 276 days. And they're covered with tarps. They're covered with, what was that one? Oh yeah, all the game cams are covered with tarps. They've found everything. They're blocking our signals on our cell phones and scrambling our stuff in the house. We can't walk around without having drones flying over us, listening to our conversations. So then it goes back to the thing, Bob, that we were talking about big pharma, right? So now we are going up to bat against $1 trillion industry, because if we show that we have therapeutic advantage and something that could actually push back against the dependency on vaccinations, and we could do this naturally with robust antibodies that could treat many viruses and potential so many diseases in the future.
No, but they would. I mean, they would be interested in finding this. Imagine if they could get a way to, or find a way to immunize against AI. I mean,
Yeah.
even big
So-
pharma should be interested. But
Yeah.
of course, what I'm interested in now, when you tell me that these things live up to 35 and 60 years, I'm more interested in the anti-aging component that they might have. There's got to be an opportunity to
They're
take their
oil.
DNA and to do some modification here.
And the
Anyway,
oil is therapeutic.
I'm terribly sorry,
But I'm
Katie. We
fine.
are running out of time, and I really do want to spend a few minutes on this other thing. So, what I find interesting is that the industry, the poultry organizations or BCAC, haven't weighed in on this. I would think they need to pay attention to this as well. Do you have any other questions before we move to the next subject, Wayne?
No, I'm okay.
Okay,
But
so-
I just want to re-emphasize the point. I think you should test at least the Federal Agriculture Committee, Katie, because if this is left up to the courts, I would worry. And there may be other avenues that need to be pursued, and CFIA should be sitting down and talking to you folks,
Yes.
and you folks should be looking after the birds, not CFIA.
That's right.
That's
We're
absolutely
not-
crazy.
We're not
They
violent.
can put a police car on the road if they like, to make sure you haven't loaded up your birds in a tractor trailer and taken them away. That's easy enough to do. But for them to be in the pens, feeding the birds, creating problems that don't
Covering
need to be created,
security
makes
cameras.
absolutely no sense to me.
No, it doesn't, and we're not
They don't-
violent. We're not hostile. So we even said we'll do chores and leave our phones out of the pens. Just allow us to tend to the animals. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Wayne. Thank you for pointing that out.
I certainly agree with Wayne. I think this is overreach, absolutely. But I also agree that I think this needs to be taken to the political level. It may be that that's the only place that where you'll be able to find a solution. However, Katie, tell us about. So it's not a multiplier herd. You're not selling them for meat. What is the scientific benefit to what you're doing with these ostriches?
So about 4 to 5 years ago, we got into the antibody research portion of the ostriches. Before that, we were involved in meat. We were trying, the meat is healthy. It's a red meat, low in cholesterol, high in protein. Diabetics can eat it. The oil is extremely therapeutic of an animal. So we were involved in this section of it. We never deny that, because that's another thing mainstream media and people like to point out, is they were used for meat. For the last 4 to 5 years, we fell into and love with the antibody research program. And the antibody research portion of it, they're prehistoric animals that have survived millions of years on this planet for a reason. They have robust immune systems. And these animals that we have here, being decades old, have overseen and seen environmental challenges that we could never duplicate. We ran into the research of Dr. Tsukamoto out of Kyoto, Japan, developed a relationship with him. He holds 36 plus worldwide patents. Those 36 plus worldwide patents he already has into actively using in Japan. Face masks, filters, all these things using the antibodies of the ostrich. Hair growth serum. There's a weight loss pill that just uses the enzymes of the ostrich. and the weight loss pill was extremely effective and actually at kind of at the competitive level with Ozempic, but absolutely natural. There's all these amazing things to do with the ostrich antibodies that are all natural and really good for human and animal welfare. Then the ostrich is given an antigen. That antigen is one protein of a virus, one protein, and then synthesized as a mimic. It's a pretend virus, and it's just given the same amount of an antigen that is given to a chicken to develop antibodies is given to a 300 to a 350 pound ostrich hen. So that then once you give the antigen to the ostrich, it goes into it triggers an autoimmune response, creating those big, beautiful, robust antibodies. Within 4 weeks, the antibodies are dropped down into the egg, and then you can extract from the IgYs from the ostrich egg to develop therapeutics with antibodies. So you could put that into nasal sprays, lozenges, and you could treat viruses.
So you're freezing all those eggs now, are you?
We were freezing them for the last few years. This year that we've been under quarantine, we were made to leave the ostrich eggs out there to be destroyed.
Oh, Wayne, you're
I love
shaking
it,
your
Wayne.
head.
That's exactly how we felt. We've been like this for a year.
Where do you store frozen ostrich eggs?
Everywhere for the last few years. Reason being just for freezer space, and we've been working with Japan. And so at my house, I had some because of, we'd be sending them back and forth. But all of those were from the last few years. They also warned us, Canadian Food Inspection Agency, that when we were at the February 1st portion, if we didn't kill all our animals ourselves, they were going to come in February 1st, that they were going to come through our personal residence and destroy all of our antibodies in our freezers. And we said, how can you do that? And they said, because we were going to destroy everything and anything byproduct of ostrich. And so they asked us even where our COVID-19 antibodies were at the same time. So, I mean, there's been a lot of really weird irregularities, but so for the last few years we've been storing them. We have them, and excited for the opportunity to still use them.
I'm going to ask you a really dumb question. If you freeze an egg, how come it doesn't break open?
Oh no, they're already separated. So we've already done that, and they're separated.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
You've cracked them
That's
open
right.
and
And frozen.
Oh, okay.
Correct, Rob.
Okay, I just saw a vision of all these eggs laying around in freezers all over the place.
No. Yeah.
Okay, that's a
No,
fascinating
it's been
story.
wonderful. It's been wonderful because they have, it's even garnered the attention with Jeff Wilson of Harvey Sasaki, and who's put out.
Right.
Yes.
Wayne, you might remember Harvey Sasaki. He used to be a deputy minister in BC. A really, really sharp gentleman. I had a lot of time for him when he was deputy.
Yeah. So, or were you asking me?
No,
Or
I
Wayne?
was telling
Oh,
Wayne, but then
sorry. I was like.
and you also have a scientist in BC that's helping
That
you,
is
right?
right. So we've been working with Dr. Pellick, Dr. Stephen Pellick out of the University of British Columbia. He's in Vancouver. He's amazing. He's been along the journey with us for months and months now. And he's a genius in this. He really can explain so much. And again, being met with the resistance from Canadian Food Inspection Agency to even take into consideration the value of our expert witnesses, it is extremely alarming for going forward for Canadian farmers. Because if we have, expert witnesses that are bringing all this opportunity of knowledge to the table, and we're just being met with resistance and unwillingness to work with us, where is the development side of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency and policy and new regulations? Where we're meant to evolve, and we're not evolving here. Policy is not law. Mandates aren't law. Regulations, obviously, we got to look more into the regulations side of it. We do have MP Scott Anderson working really closely alongside of us, so maybe we can really start looking at that agricultural portion of the committee. But
You know,
it's
well,
alarming.
it's
And
always something. And, oh, sorry to interrupt, but we
no,
need
go
to
ahead,
do a
Bob.
much better job at developing regulations that work
Yeah,
and that are sensitive to what's actually happening in the industry, right? These
right.
regulations were designed before there was ever a case like what you have now, and so the regulations perhaps don't work anymore. And you can't say, well, we've got enough here. We think that. I remember when we were lobbying about animal welfare, Wayne, in Ottawa. They were going to change the animal welfare laws, and we met with Anne McClellan, who was the Justice Minister at the time. And she looked at us and she says, "You know something? I am very comfortable that the wording in this legislation is such that if it goes to court, farmers will win." And we looked at her and we said, "Well, we'd really like the law to be written in such a way that farmers didn't have to go to court to win. We would rather like the law to be more adaptive to what the real situation is on the ground." But
Yeah,
that's certainly the case.
not a
Just to
one
come
size
back to
fits
the
all.
come back to the committee business for a minute. If
Okay.
you do write a letter to the committee, um, I would suggest you add to your letter a suggested witness list, not just yourselves. Yours is the firm, but if you could add Dr. Pellick, former Deputy Minister of Agriculture in BC, not a lot, but a few.
Harvey is the former deputy minister.
Yeah.
Yeah, both the
Uh,
doctor and Harvey. Okay, sorry, Wayne, go ahead.
they would no, they would add to uh, the information of the committee and to hear from others as well. I mean, you're personally and emotionally involved in this, but if you have others who can be seen as more neutral, then that should add weight to your argument.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And again, looking at just the current, again, CFIA policy, which is failing to recognize and re-examine uh, its how we apply it. Because this is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Non-commercial birds, which we're a non-commercial bird, this could be solved as quickly as easily as also removing them from the poultry category, because we're just not poultry. We're a ratite, but we're fighting forward. I really like what you've said though about the Supreme Court of Canada, and to be careful with that as well, because where is that going to get us? But we do have a little bit of a concern right now, and that is that we had Canadian Food Inspection Agency put out quite a bit of misinformation on the government website. And one of those numbers that they put out there once they got in there was that we have about 300 to 330 ostriches out there. And that's fine. Okay, let's go off their number. But what has been happening is that we're starting to see less and less ostriches out there. And we've been taking aerial photos from up the mountains. We've been taking some video from up the mountains, looking into all of our pens, and we can't get to 300 ostriches. So, and that number has went down. So we don't know if they're playing some sort of basically God, and that they know what the answer is going to be, so they're killing out there anyway. But there's a big problem here. And I mean, if they are killing under an interim stay order of the Supreme Court level, I'm hoping, and our family and farm are hoping, that you better believe that they are brought to justice, because we are, and we should, like you said, Wayne, be in there caring for these animals under an interim stay order with no prior history of being aggressive, angry. We were not blocking them from coming in the pens chained or anything. We just wanted to feed the animals. So
Yeah,
we're going to see where that.
I can't believe that there'd be anybody dumb enough at the CFIA that would actually do that. But you know something? I'm surprised my producer hasn't yanked my chain yet. We are at a time, Katie. This has been very, very fascinating. And it definitely has been beneficial to hear both sides of the story. And Wayne and I have both had experience with the CFIA. I mean, they do a very good job. It's like everything else, right? They're great until they're not.
Yeah, well, they've hit their
And
wall.
so we know that there are definitely weaknesses in the system. There's no question about it. This has been very good. Katie, thank you so much. And I'm
Thank you.
especially
Thank you.
fascinated by the science that you've put behind what you're doing with the ostriches currently. That is very fascinating. I am, of course, interested in the anti-aging gene as well as in the weight loss gene. So as soon as you can courier those to me, that would be great. Wayne, do you have anything else?
No, just to say, if you know, if there's a will to get there, there should be alternatives looked at. The will has to be found to look at alternatives to a kill, and you're going to have to use every avenue you can to have that discussion. And the political level has a responsibility to have that discussion.
That's right. Yeah, I appreciate that. I
Sorry
appreciate
about my voice. I got a bit of a cold today, but anyway.
Well,
that's
you
okay.
need
Maybe
an
I need one of the. Do they have any antibodies for a
I was
cold?
gonna
you
say
need
we'll
an
have
ostrich egg.
antibodies for that. You'll be fine.
Go out and find an ostrich egg. Well, thanks a lot again, Katie. We're going to be in touch for sure.
Sounds good.
Thank you very
Perfect.
much. As usual, Wayne, thank you very much for your words of wisdom. And if you've eaten today, thank a farmer.